Ah, the beautiful Jumeau, indeed. When we talked about how some firms seem to really grasp not only the beauty of the doll, but the presentation of it and the marketing, so that they could control so much of what was coming along in the French doll world. Emile Jumeau, he just had it more than anyone else. He really understood it. And so from the period of about 1877 until really the mid-1890s, this was the firm, this was the go-to firm. This is where new things were coming out. This is where facial models were evolving slowly, where painting techniques were evolving. Costume became an extraordinary part of the firm. And the way to present it in shops, in shows, with new fashions coming out every season, this became so important to him that he was able to control everything. And so you find his name appearing in all of the trends catalogs. You find it appearing in the department stores. They didn't just advertise a doll with their name on it or a generic doll. They advertised the Bébés Jumeau. So we have here a sampling. There are, I bet there's close to 50 Jumeaus in this wonderful catalog. And I've just presented here a few of them because I wanted you to see the variety of facial models, of sizes, of different costuming techniques. So let's just start over here on the left-hand side with a gentleman in the burgundy marquis costume and his madame, who is standing there with him in the ivory. And they're wearing their original costumes that were likely made for perhaps the 1889 Paris Exposition, where they wanted to present dolls to appear as though they were the marquis and the marquise. Original Perry, the rolled white periwig styling of the wigs, and everything about them is wonderful. Using the classic tep model of the time, but turning them into absolute singular kind of pieces that are just so extremely rare to have. Next to them is another couple. And these are, of course, even rarer because the gentleman has the wonderful face from the Jumeau character series face with the smiling expression on them. They are wearing their original costumes, and these dolls were really significant because, once again, we want to talk about provenance and history. As much as you are able to track down the background of pieces, you want to. And they originally appeared on the cover of Doll News magazine in 1964. Now, folks, count the years: 64, 74, 84, 94, 2004, 2014. We're, over 60 years now. Over 60 years when these dolls appeared on the cover of Doll News magazine in exactly the same condition they are to this day. They were at that point in the collection of Vi Bennett in California. She was a wonderful collector. She had really good taste. She was a great story in and of herself. Sometime I'll talk to all of you about her. It was one of the first really fine collections that we ever handled, and I really enjoyed knowing her. But we didn't have these at the time. They were evidently had been sold prior to our coming along, and they were just wonderful. They then went into Sandy Kralovetz's collection. We had them from a collection in Arkansas that we sold years later, and then Sandy Kralovetz bought them from there. So we can help you trace the background back to like 1964, and how long before that we don't know that Vi Bennett had it. And I only keep dwelling on this because I know so many of you are kind of finally latching on to this. I want to know the backstory of my doll. I want to know its personal history, where it lived, and what was it for. Now, why were these dolls created? Well, in 1899, Jumeau presented a series of dolls. In fact, he did a series of postcards of the dolls in the original costumes that had been made in his studio. And he showed these for the 1899 International Exposition, including the dolls with the Jumeau character faces. And it was likely this was the last hurrah. It was after that Jumeau merged into the SFBJ company in 1899. So they probably were made for there. They certainly were made for some exhibition. They were not a standard product to be offered in a store anywhere, but all original. The pair have stayed together all of these lives. They have matching gloves, they have matching shoes, matching costumes, and they are absolutely extraordinary and perfectly preserved by every single person who has owned them to this time. Absolute rarity treasures. Sitting in front of them is a doll that, if you don't love this doll, you don't love dolls. I'm just going to come right out and say it there. It's a tiny little Jumeau, early period Jumeau, with what is known as that little tiny smiling face. Very, very rare to find, and about as charming as it is rare, because it's a gem. Next to her is another premier Jumeau. She isn't smiling. I guess it was a younger sister that smiled and she didn't, but they really basically have the same face except for the variations in painting, and one is smiling and one isn't. Staying in the front row, we have a little tiny doll. It might be a size 1, but actually her size number is not marked on her, so I don't know. She is probably the tiniest Bébé Jumeau I've seen. Very lovely. Next to her in the pink, holding a little bird cage, is another one of the premier Jumeaux. So there's 3 of them there, 2 in blue and 1 in pink with those. And what's characteristic about them? What do you notice all 3 of them have? Those bigger eyes. That's just a very dramatic feature of them that makes them very, very noticeable. What collectors in the larger models, collectors sometimes refer to these as wraparound eyes, which is, again, to me that kind of falls in the category of the French wrestler bodies. I hate those terminologies, but I understand where they're saying, because the eyes do tend to try to wrap around the sides of the head, and they are very, very beautifully done, and they tend to have gorgeous spiral threading in them. Now move up behind there for a minute, and there we have, she actually appears on the cover of the catalog, and she is wearing her original Jumeau couturier costume. I'm going to move this little girl aside so you can kind of see the whole presentation there. And that's very lovely. Okay. We show her surrounded by all sorts of little ones and she aptly fits the theme, the look on her face. The title of the catalog is Dreams, and she does look dreamy and has a dreamy expression, and she is a dream. Next to her is a Tête Jumeau, but again, we wanted you to see it because it is all original costume. This would have been one of the last dolls that Sandy would have acquired too, because this came from the Huguette Clark collection, which was right before our magical shutdown years of the 2020s, of the COVID years. But that was from the Huguette Clark collection, very important to have. And it had been purchased by Huguette Clark from us prior to that time. In the back, and I talked to you about the phrase I called the wraparound eyes, there are like 5 of these dolls in the auction with these the beautiful early portrait bébé by Jumeau with the very, very dramatic large eyes. When I go to catalog the eyes, what I always find notable is that their complexion is very pale. And then the eye sockets it's not just dark eyeliner in the eye sockets, but it's thick dark eyeliner. So it's very, very dramatic and really makes the eyes pop out. And then above that, there'll be that shaded mauve eyeshadow that is just a work of art, quite frankly. There's no denying it. Very lightly feathered brows, and so you have beautiful faces there with that very pale bisque, and you can see the 2 of them standing side by side, and you decide which one appeals to you, or maybe both. And then in the front, we have beautiful little Jumeau wearing her original Jumeau chemise with the label, the gilt-lettered label on the front of her chemise that says Bébé Jumeau. And once again, she was wearing her original costume when she came in, and when we undressed her to check her for marks and all, we discovered the original chemise underneath, and we said, well, let's let people see that, and they get the dress and the bonnet that comes along with it, which is very, very rare to have. Then if we move over just a little bit more, let me show you this little one, and I want to show you her mark at the back, because this is that very, very rare mark that is referred to as the cartouche mark. It's like a banner mark, and then in the letter are the large letters Jumeau are printed within there. She's one of the earliest Jumeaus, and very, very full lower cheeks, a little different than the other early premiers, because something about the way her face is very, very full makes it quite desirable. And folks, all wooden body, all wooden fully jointed body. Another very, very rare feature of her. Next to her is another Tête Jumeau in all original presentation, including the hat, the gloves, the dress, the socks, the shoes, and the shoes with, we'll point out, the gilt lettering on them, Bébés Jumeau. Original Jumeau earrings. And she's in competition with her other sister right here, who is also totally original. And I want to see her shoes are fully signed. And this dress is so extraordinary. I'm just going to have to take a minute and move her up here to show you. Let's stand up a little straighter here, sweetheart. Okay, there we go. And I want you to see this girl all the way around and see the back of this dress. It's absolutely wonderful. Totally original from the Jumeau, Ernestine Jumeau workshops, including her little red Jumeau earrings. That's a wonderful doll. I think Jumeau deserves the accolades that the firm has, because the dolls were quality. They were presented well. They were presented in a variety of styles and costumes, and they were marketing of them was a way for us to study today good marketing, because he entered his dolls into competitions. He tried to win awards. He wrote little stories about them. There were all different types of things that were done to make them become part of the whole history of childhood at the time in France, and consequently around the world, and consequently into our homes today. Collectors today just love it if they could find some of the original postcards that he did, or any of the original storybooks that he did.